If it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, politician, and philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. But in order to truly understand and appreciate Nelson Mandela, we must first understand the history in which he participated, starting with the notorious South African apartheid. Starting in 1948, the National Party gained power in South Africa, a party made up of all white Dutch South Afrikaners who immediately began enforcing existing policies of racial segregation under a system of legislation that is called apartheid. Under apartheid, non-white South Africans, a majority of the population, would be forced to live in separate areas from whites and use separate public facilities, and contact between the two groups would be limited. This type of oppression remained for 50 years. So, what was Nelson Mandela's role in all of this? It all started when Mandela began studying for his Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Fort Hare. However, he did not complete his degree, for he was expelled due to joining in a student protest, which shows, even at a younger age, Mandela had a growing passion and desire to stand up for his rights and beliefs. After his expulsion, in order to escape an arranged marriage, Mandela fled, later going to 3 different colleges multiple times in order to get his bachelor degree in law. Following his education came his career in politics. He began to attend African National Congress meetings and became the president of the African National Youth League. Finally, after much self-motivated political involvement, Nelson Mandela became a member of the ANC, in other terms the major leagues of Black African politics in South Africa. In 1952, only 2 years after he joined the ANC, Mandela was arrested for suppression of the Communist Act. Violating this act meant you were being hostile or supporting a disturbance against the Afrikaner government in South Africa, in other terms, protesting the apartheid. Doing so resulted in imprisonment, specifically 9 months of imprisonment and hard labor. But this did not stop Nelson Mandela, for in the same year, he and his partner Oliver Tambo established South Africa's first ever black law firm, in order to help those being discriminated against during the apartheid. In the following years, Nelson Mandela was arrested within a countrywide police swoop of men and women of all races. However, Mandela was acquitted after 3 years. In the same year Mandela was acquitted, the country went through its first state of emergency, where on March 21, 1960, in Sharpeville, South Africa, police killed 69 unarmed civilians in protest. After this, thousands were detained, including Mandela, and the African National Congress was made illegal. Later in the year of 1962, Nelson Mandela fled the country illegally and traveled to England, and eventually returned back to South Africa, where he was arrested for illegally leaving the country and was sentenced with 5 years. In 1964, Nelson Mandela was sentenced to imprisonment for life, a final measurement the government took to contain him and 7 other diplomatic politicians fighting for their civil rights. Yet he was still able to speak through his prison bars to the people and gather support despite his confinement. Eventually, in 1990, 4 years before the end of the apartheid, responding to national pressure, the government unbanned the ANC and released Nelson Mandela from prison. After over about 5 decades of suffering, confinement, segregation, and inhumanity, from there on, Nelson Mandela's path looked upward and bright. A month after, Mandela was elected Deputy President of the African National Congress. On December 10, 1993, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize with President of South Africa, F.W. de Klerk. But the fight was not over, for South Africa's white minority race was still resisting the reform for open election. However, Nelson Mandela used the force of his moral integrity and taught the country to seek reconciliation and not revenge, successfully uniting South Africa. And on April 27, 1994, millions of Black South Africans, including Nelson Mandela, lined up across the country in order to do one of the most liberating things of all to prove one's freedom. For the first time ever, Black South Africans were allowed to vote. And finally, May 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected and inaugurated President of the Democratic South Africa.